My name is Kelp, and this is The Lion of Poetry, Episode 2, in which we introduce our first poet. Tough decision. I couldn't decide who to choose. I thought about Shakespeare, my friend here at the Bobblehead. I had many thoughts, but in the end, I'm going with a poet who lived in England from 1772 to 1834. I'm talking about Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Now, Coleridge was best friends with the poet William Wordsworth. And the two of them co-wrote a book which was published in 1798 called The Lyrical Ballads. And this book revolutionized poetry at that time and launched the concept of romantic poetry. When I say romantic, I don't mean lovey-dovey romantic. Romanticism or romantic poetry really was a reaction to the industrialization of England that was happening at that time. And it was a call back to nature and to the grandeur of nature. And it was really kind of a worship and adoration of nature. And kind of like an environmentalist movement that was really back in the late 1700s. So nature certainly plays a role in the poem that I'm going to read you today, which is called Kubla Khan. And the poem actually has a preface to it written in prose where Coleridge explains that he was sleeping. He was reading this book about Kubla Khan, this great Chinese emperor, and he was in an opium-induced sleep. So he was eating opium. And he had these visions of Kubla Khan's palace and also of some beautiful woman that he saw sort of suspended in the air. And then there was a knock on the door, and there was some salesman from Porlock, that was the place, that came to sell him something, interrupted his dream, interrupted his vision, and he could never get it back. And after the salesman leaves, Coleridge bemoans the fact that he cannot regain the ecstasy that he had with these glorious visions that he tries in vain to put down, at least in some form, in this poem. So the poem is really two visions. One is the vision of the palace of Kubla Khan, and the second is a separate vision of this damsel with a dulcimer who's floating in the air as well. And that's what the poem's about. But really what the poem is about sex. And many of the natural images that we're going to see in this poem can be read as sexual images as well. They can be read as forces of nature and forces of sexuality. For example, you're going to hear in the poem the deep romantic chasm. You're going to hear about the woman wailing for her demon lover, the fast, thick pants, half-intermittent bursts, many images which in the context of the poem are describing the fountains around Kubla Khan's palace, but really are very sexual. Keep in mind that Coleridge was 26 years old when this was written. Listen to the music of the poem. There's rhymes in the poem, but there's also this sort of sexuality that I've talked about. Even in the very beginning, in Xanadu did Kubla Khan, we hear the ooh, ooh, ooh sound. Listen to the way I read it. Close your eyes, enjoy the sounds, enjoy the images, and think about nature, think about sex, think about creativity, because in the end, that's what this poem is about too. It's about the creative process that sometimes just gets interrupted. Kubla Khan. A vision in a dream. A fragment. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers were girdled round, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree. And here were forests, ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. But oh, that deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart a cedarn cover, a savage place as holy and enchanted as ere beneath a waning moon was haunted by woman wailing for her demon lover. And from this chasm, with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast, thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amid whose swift half-intermitted burst, huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail, or chaffy grain beneath the thresher's flail. And mid these dancing rocks, at once and ever, it flung up momently the sacred river, 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion. Through wood and dale the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns, measureless to man, and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean. And mid this tumult Kubla heard from far ancestral voices prophesying war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. A damsel with a dulcimer in a vision once I saw. It was an Abyssinian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Could I revive within me her symphony and song, to such a deep delight 'twould win me, that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair. Weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread. For he on honey dew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise. See you next time.